You can change your entire life by just changing one habit. Subscribe to our podcast and make listening a habit.
Change your mindset, manifest your dream life, and live magically with Rise and Align.
Raising the frequency one episode at a time.
Everything is always working out for us. Hello and welcome back to the Rise and Align podcast, where we talk about all things high vibrational. We are your hosts. My name is Demi.
And I am Haley, and today we once again have a very special guest, Alfredo Borodowski, and he is an international keynote speaker, consultant, and expert in peak performance and positive psychology. He has worked with global firms to help align positivity with purpose. If you're ready to understand what truly drives performance, purpose, and lasting motivation, keep listening.
Hi, Demi and Haley. Haley.
Yeah.
I know. Thank you for having me in your show. My name is Alfredo Borodowski. I'm an expert on peak performance. And my accent means Argentina. I am from Argentina, from Buenos Aires. I came here to the States 30 years ago, but the accent never goes away. It's part of my identity. And, I would like to share with those listening what they have learned about how to maximize your potential, making sure that you are using all your strengths. And at the end of the journey of life, you can look back and say, I did my best. Because I think that's the question that is at the bottom of everybody's mind. Am I going to get to a point where I can look back and say, I feel happy with myself because I gave it all? That's, I think, is a question that people don't mention sometimes, don't articulate, but it's at the kind of on the back of the mind of everybody if we go through life.
Absolutely. I was thinking today, and I was really curious on your perspective. I think as humans, we have this lingering, background feeling of a fear of time and a fear of an ending, because we're all told life is short and, we're all going to die and there's this end. For me, I always think energy can't be created or destroyed. So there is an end, and everything, to this reality, I guess, for me, and every moment is still absolutely precious and divine as it is. But I'm just really curious on your perspective on that, because I think as humans, we're always living in somewhat fear of that, time passing us by.
Yeah. Look, I am a rabbi for those, and, I don't have a pulpit anymore, but I served as a rabbi at congregations for 30 years. And something I learned from the Jewish wisdom is that you live your life like the day you are living today is the last one.
Mm-hmm.
Not from the point of view of fear, but from the point of view of opportunity. Every day is an opportunity, and it has to be lived at the fullest way. I never, or I try not to do something tomorrow that I can do today.
Mm-hmm.
I have a to-do list, okay, clearly, short-term goals and long-term goals, but things that I can do today, I try not to put them for tomorrow, because I live in the opportunity of the moment, but not with fear, with enjoyment.
Absolutely. That's so beautiful. That resonates with me so much. I feel the same way. It's kind of living from a state of gratitude, because every moment is so precious here, and I love that you say, I always do it today if I can, I try not to put it off. I think that's so important and such a good tip. And it's so rewarding when you live that way. I always think to myself, if there's something that's a mess in the house, right? Instead of just ignoring it, I'll be like, success says do it now. Depression says do it later. And when you just take that, like you're saying, and do it today. If you can do it today, it's gratifying. It's rewarding. And then you're taking care of yourself and your space. Like that's just such good advice.
Mm.
I believe in what is called the 10-second rule. At least that's the way I learned it, which I use a lot when I coach people. An airplane goes through a runway, let's say for 10 seconds, and the amount of fuel and energy that the plane is taking to take off is more than what the plane uses to fly. Then that's when I go to the gym every day, and there is a moment where I say, I'm not going today. Or, I'm going to begin my diet today. No, I begin tomorrow. The key is on those 10 seconds of decision. If you can get through those 10 seconds where you may say no, but you go through those 10, then you fly.
That's so good.
You had to overcome those 10 seconds. Okay. If you can control those 10 seconds, then you can go through the process of change, like an airplane flying, flying through the air.
So good. That's
That is so
beautiful.
good. I love that. Yes.
So you talk a lot about learning what our personal strengths are. And I'm curious because I think I have a child, I have a 9-year-old, and I think about the school system a lot. And I think how different do you think it'd be, or how do you think it would affect the world if we learned as children what our strengths were and worked from that place?
How different a different world.
Yeah.
Hmm.
The question of how different, I work with peak performance and positive psychology based on 24 strengths that everybody has. And what we know from research is that 70% of people are unaware of their strengths. We have an epidemic of strength blindness. And we know also from research that if you know your strengths, you are 9 times with higher chance of flourishing. If you know them, okay, imagine just to know them, and you are 9 times with more chance of flourishing. If you apply them, you are 18 times. Then 70% of people are going through life 9 times below what they could just for not knowing their strengths. We were talking about looking back at the end of life and saying, I gave it my best, and you don't know your strengths, and you gave it 9 times below what you could.
Wow.
Okay, isn't it amazing? Then, I actually teach at schools, at the fact, for the teachers. They invite me to schools to talk about positive psychology applied to education. And there is a negativity process in which we try to determine what the student is not doing well and focus on that to repair them, like they're broken, to repair them. When what we need to do actually is emphasize and cultivate and develop what is working. And I do this also with managers at companies. Like I say, we need to move from a culture of fixing to a culture of nourishing.
Absolutely.
My parents did it to me, but my parents, I remember high school in Argentina, my parents went to that, parent teachers conference. And, I was waiting and waiting. They came back and my parents would love me. They will say to me immediately, you did great on everything, but you have a problem at math. Okay, then they went straight, and then I never was good at math, by the way, because I had, because math became a problem and I became a problem. Okay, then we need to determine what the kid is good at and make them better at that and gain excellence on that. Okay, clearly it's a basic that everybody should have. We want everybody to be able to read and to do basic math. Okay, but beyond the basics, we need to cultivate what the kids love and have excellence at, from fixing to nourishing.
That is so good. Do you find that when people are connecting with their strengths, does it align with what they're passionate about? Like, I find that, or, if you're thinking about like what I'm passionate about, does that align with their strengths typically?
Alignment is the most important word on this. Most of a sense of not accomplishing and losing motivation is for lack of alignment. Okay, then we need to align our strengths with our goals. Okay, people who can do that are happier, and have a great sense of well-being. But it is impossible to align your goals with your strengths if you are not aware of what your strengths are. Okay, then what do people just, what they do, they set external goals, what we call external goals, which are based on accomplishing things which are external to us. By the way, some of those are good because I like things. I like good clothing too. Okay, and I like, I don't like traveling a lot, but I think that people have to also have a good life on the world of things. But if that's the major objective of success per se, success for the sake of success, without being connected to the strength, because strengths are what we do naturally, authentically, and with motivation, and energized us. Then if you don't align your strengths with your objectives, you may get to the goal, but feel empty. And that's what's happening a lot today. People who have had great success and are depressed. Why? There is no alignment.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So I find people don't realize how impactful positive psychology is. And nowadays with social media, we'll, for example, get comments. Like everyone has some kind of social media page, and you might get 100 really wonderful positive comments. And then you get one negative comment, or the same, as a child, you did really great in everything, but you're really bad at this. It's human nature, I think, or at least in our society, to focus on that one negative thing. What would your advice be on how do you change that perspective? Like, how do you teach your brain to focus on that positive instead of the negative?
Yes, we're programmed for the negative. Just to give you some research by Barbara Fredrickson, who is the world expert on positivity. For each negative emotion you have, let's say jealousy, anger, for each negative emotion, you need 3 positive ones to go back to equal state, and you need 4 to 5 to flourish. Then the negative is more powerful than the positive. And each time we go through a negative experience, we need to work hard to get back to level and work harder to flourish. We know also that an average person, it is average, not everybody's different, but an average person has 80% of negative thoughts a day. I have 90%. That's why I say average. Okay, my mind is like, okay, I had to work a lot. Then how do I work? Okay, first of all, you need to engage yourself in a process of self-awareness. And at many points during the day, you have to stop thinking and ask yourself the question, what I am thinking about and how I am thinking. Okay, you need to put your phone, the alarm, 4 times a day to stop and ask the question, how am I thinking now? Then that's a very useful exercise. Also, we know from what is called cognitive psychology, which I like a lot, that more universal the thoughts are, more you use always and never in your mind, okay, you're wrong. There are not always and nevers.
Yeah.
Okay. The more universal you are, more catastrophic you are, then you are on the on the negative. And I always like to teach the three principles of optimism. Okay, then to be optimistic when something happens needs to be temporally constrained in terms, this happened to me, something negative. This happened to me now, but not always. You had to, okay, it has to be for external causes. This happened to me because I didn't sleep well yesterday, not because I am a failure. Okay. And this has to be also controlled in what I call space, in terms of you had a bad experience at work, don't go back home and, get into a fight with your boyfriend or girlfriend.
Mm.
There are three domains: space, time, and internalizing. If you can control those three things, then you control negative thoughts.
Wow, that's great. I've never heard that before, actually. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, that's a really great advice. I think it's also so important just to not identify yourself with a negative situation or, any situation. Like you are not that situation. You're just experiencing it, which I think can be a powerful
You know,
way.
I have bipolar disorder. I
Hmm.
have disorder. I never say I am bipolar.
Hmm.
I always say I have.
Hmm.
It's very different the way you use language. It's not defining me. I have something the way some other people have something else, but I do not become the negativity or the challenge.
Yes, I think that's so important. Our words are so important, and we've talked about
Oh,
this
yeah.
before too. Their spells. We're like speaking, our reality into existence. So
You know,
intention and mindfulness is so
without,
important.
without getting into religion, okay, the Bible, God created the world speaking. Language preceded existence. We create reality through our thoughts, which is another thing I want everybody to understand, that we know from research that, if you put your hand in front of you and look at your hand, or you close your eyes and you think about your hand, we know from resonance that the same part of the brain light up. The brain doesn't know the difference between thinking about the hand and looking at the hand, which means that you can think about something and create reality in your mind before it manifests itself in the external. Then manifesting is very important. Being internally, creating internal reality, and then the external reality will follow out of it. I so much believe in that.
So do we. Absolutely. It's so nice to hear somebody who truly understands that and has such wisdom. You've lived so much life and experienced so many different paths of life and worked with so many different people in different walks of life, and it's so very clear to you, and it makes me tear up a bit because I'm like, yes, tell everyone. It's so
The
nice to hear.
one, the one who brought me to this is my wife, by the way. I had to credit her. She got first into these issues of spirituality and manifesting and energy, and she's my mentor on this. Then I did my own research, clearly I was into positive psychology before that, but I was into the science of positive psychology. It's a scientific discipline. Then I was, more on the science of it than the spiritual aspects of it. And then I began playing with it.
They really, really intertwine and relate. There's nothing more satisfying to me than being able to be like, well, your thoughts do manifest your reality, but here's why. I have logical proof. So good. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I'm curious, you speak all over the world and you've lived in different countries. Do you notice a difference in the culture within positive psychology? Like, is the American culture different than South America that way at all?
The differences are enormous.
Mm.
Okay, and I wouldn't say positive psychology is cultural. I go to Argentina, and first of all, every day of the week they have some meeting with somebody at the coffee shop to talk. Okay, here we have Starbucks, where you go, get your coffee, and leave.
Order
Okay,
ahead.
okay. There they have 3 or 4 coffee shops, like in Paris, on every block, and businesses, whatever you got to do, you go for coffee and you sit down, okay, and talk for hours, okay, and I lived in Israel many years. It's the same thing, and I go to Chile to work a lot with companies, and it's the same thing. There is this culture of leisure in which you go for business and you talk about existential things that are very philosophical. Okay. They can also ask you how much money you make. There are, here in the States, there are a lot of questions you don't ask. There, they have no filters. How much do you make? How much, and many other things that you would
Mhm.
not dare to, but there is kind of this much of existential, psychological, on getting to know the person at a personal level and not looking you may have 3, 4 coffees a day with different people that where you have some kind of intimate connection. Here is more business oriented, more practical, get things done,
Mhm.
guarded. It's more guarded culture. I suffer from it, by the way. I missed a lot that kind of intimacy and expression. I think that of the things I missed much from being here in the States with all the things I love from being an American. Now, I miss that.
Mm.
Let's have a coffee without having to look at agendas 2 months
Mhm.
before, 2 months before, and send me a text. Everything has to be like 3 weeks in advance, and like talk with my secretary there. Hey, let's go and have coffee. Yes. Uh, then
Mm.
then that's but in terms of positive psychology, I want to say that we are the most advanced, I
Mm.
think, of the countries in terms of research. We invented it. It was invented in 1998 here in the States.
Mm.
We had masters and PhDs at universities. Then we are the world leaders on positive psychology. I think that the major impact is having on businesses, being on more on people in particular. I think that it's having a big impact on the way businesses are conducted. That's why I work a lot in businesses, because I see a real impact, a great interest in applying positive psychology to work.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
Hmm.
So you did mention a little bit about your mental health, and I love that you said I don't say I am this. I'm curious what part or like how your mental health influenced your journey to become where you are today, and then what advice you might have for someone who is experiencing troubles with their mental health, because I think that is really common today.
Then I wasn't diagnosed bipolar until I was arrested. I was a rabbi of a major congregation, and a retired policeman gave me one of those friends and family badges, and I was wrongly medicated. I was manic, and they gave me an antidepressive. And between the badge, manic, undiagnosed from medication and began patrolling the streets of New York, the highways, and telling people to drive carefully. Mostly I was right. They were texting or something. By the way, I was doing great service to the community until I showed the badge to the fiancé of a policeman in one town. And it took 3 minutes until I was arrested and I was fired from a job. I had a prestigious job. I was hospitalized, diagnosed bipolar. And because I was a rabbi of a prestigious congregation, the press had a circus with me and they baptized the rabbi as the road rage rabbi. And I was even on front pages of newspapers from Ireland to Japan. And I was on 8 months on a couch in complete depression, obscurity, darkness, until one day, I can't tell you how, I stood from the couch and I went upstairs to my study. And there on my desk, I found something that I do not know how it got there. It was a yellow file and opened it. And I saw a test on positive psychology I had taken a few years before. And I looked at the 5 top strengths: creativity, love of learning, curiosity, perseverance, and bravery. And something turned on inside of me. I said, Alfredo, you have forgotten yourself, who yourself is. I was energized. I discovered my forgotten strengths. And a month later, I was back to school with depression, with court cases, with the press to become a social worker.
Wow.
Okay. Then there are many ways to go through a crisis. I believe in crisis and clarity in terms of when you go through a crisis, it is absolutely obligatory at some point to ask yourself what wisdom I gain out of it. Is the question of questions, because every crisis is a teacher.
Mm.
And I see a lot of people who go through a crisis and then they recover from it. And the first thing they want to do is to forget.
Mm.
And they go from crisis to now I feel better. Let's move ahead. They need to pause and reflect what wisdom I have. And that's what I did. I inquired about what wisdom I gained. Second, discipline. I take my medication, go to therapy every week, psychiatrist, exercise, eat well, sleep well.
Mm.
Whatever your challenge, you need to create a discipline in your life about how to regulate your life. And the third thing is like, you know your strengths. We know that your strengths works against depression, motivates you. And by the way, I want to do something now before I forget. I want everybody who is listening now to take their cell phones, iPhone, Android, I don't care, smartphones, cell phones, show that I am over 40. You take your smartphone, you go to your text, and you text the word positive to the number 33777. Okay, you have to believe if you're listening. Take your smartphone and text positive to 33777, and you're going to get in return 2 pages with 24 strengths of positive psychology and 2 easy steps to find your top 5. Because I am talking so much about the strengths, and people are maybe, how do I know, blindness, how do I know mine? Hey, I'm not going to leave you without you knowing yours. Then I made it easy. I used to have a website, Borodowski, nobody could spell it. I cannot spell my own last name. then I get into this system, Textiful, it's called, where you just have one word, positive, clearly, what other word I could choose, an easy number, and you get how you get your strengths.
So once people do that and they find out their strengths, I have a feeling they're going to say, now what? So what would you recommend, or like what would someone do after they find out what their strengths are?
Well, it happens naturally because they say, oh, I am good at this, and it's almost kind of you move into the action in a very natural way.
Mhm.
Okay, I've seen it. Okay, like I saw creativity, curiosity, love of learning, and I made what did I do? I enrolled myself at a master's program. Okay, because that love of learning, creativity, and curiosity. Okay, what we are an easy exercise, which I have also there on the material you will get, is you take your top 5 strengths, which are called the signature strengths, are your strongest one. You take each one of them and you say, today I'm going to practice this one.
Mm.
Tomorrow I practice number 2, then number 3, and I tell you, it's going to maximize your energy tremendously. 9 times flourishing, okay, 18 times flourishing. Then you play with your strengths, one strength every day. Although you've been using them because they are natural to you, when you bring them from into consciousness and you use them intentionally is when they acquire full force. Then experiment each one of them intentionally every day.
I think that's such great advice. It's kind of you are taking the knowledge that you've learned and actually applying it. And I feel like that helps you kind of retrain your brain and like you're able to like teach yourself how to act from those strengths, which is so cool.
Absolutely. And I will say, so since we had met previously, I did text positive to the number 33777 and I did you had a couple different things on there recommended to do once you figure out your traits. And I did the exercises and I can confirm I felt very aligned. And it's almost like I'll be kind of hard on myself. I'm one of those people, I have a mile long to do list and I'm always working at it. It's always getting longer. And if I don't get enough done, I will feel like, oh no, like I'm not succeeding. I'm like, I'm doing a bad job. But after I did that, I was like, wow, I really am really good at these specific things. And I do use them all the time. And the more I use them, the higher vibrationally I feel. And I see that reflecting in my life too. Like we're all of a sudden attracting better and better things and people and experiences. And it is really beautiful to even just recognize what those traits are.
There is a law of attraction. The
Hmm.
law of attraction says the positive attracts the positive, the negative attracts the negative. You wake up positive, you're going to have likely a positive day. You wake up negative, you are going to end up negative. I also want to say, something that I learned from Tal Ben Shahar, who is one of the leading positive psychology experts, is what he calls permission to be human.
Mm.
We are human, and we need to give us permission to be humans. And permission to be humans means that sometimes you don't do everything on the to-do list, and that you may not get things perfect, and that you may fail and recover and try again. Okay, then everybody has to say to themselves, "I give myself permission to be human," which in many ways is it's getting rid of all those images that people in our lives at different ways try to impose upon us of who we should be.
Mm.
The permission to be human is the permission to be authentically who you want to be, and that authentic self is not perfect
Mm.
and never will be perfect.
I love that so much. Thank you. That was beautiful. That reminds me of, I don't know if you've ever heard Abraham Hicks, but she always says, you can't get it wrong and you'll never get it done. That's it's so true as humans.
That's what I see a lot of suffering, like what we call origin story. The origin story is moments of, or a moment of series of moments, usually happening between the age of 5 and 20, where people say something to you, and you didn't have at that point the capacity of full reflection. Then you internalize them as true without critical thinking. And they're operating like software. And a lot of work I do with people is exploring the origin story, because decisions are made through the origin story. If the origin story was of rejection, because you were rejected, then you're going to make decisions, let's say, of pleasing everybody, because you don't want to go through that pain you suffered before. And a lot of what we do it on default mode through our origin story. And we need to explore those moments in our past, critical moments where we were told things that we know today that are not true, but we're still operating through them.
Absolutely.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. Thank you again for sharing your knowledge. We've had the word success come up a few times, and I'm really curious because you have worked with a lot of large companies and you're teaching this concept with peak performance and working with your strengths. I'm curious what your definition of success is and how that has maybe changed over time.
Then I'm going to share with you a story from the Talmud. The Talmud is the book of wisdom of Judaism. Then there's a story of a rabbi who dies, and then goes to heaven, and then he there are very different versions of the story. Then he apologizes. His name was Susia, and then Susia said, "I apologize that I haven't been like Moses. I apologize that I haven't been more like Abraham. I apologize that I haven't been more like King David." And then a voice says, "That's not how we are judging you. We're judging you, you had not been more like Susia." Okay. Then the success is being yourself at your best. We know from a research that happiness is made out of 3 components. 50% is genetic. We come from the factory with a proclivity to more or less happiness genetically. What's good about it is that genetic is not written in stone. Actually, we can modify genetics in terms of, you have a predisposition for cancer, but you eat well and you exercise, the genes may not express themselves. Okay, but yes, there are people who have more proclivity through happiness, but it's not written in stone. 10% of happiness comes from external things: the house you have, the career you have, the car you drive, the clothing you have. 10%. And 40%, this is from research, comes from inner strengths, relationships, wisdom. That's a lot, 40%. Okay. The problem with society is that we have made out of happiness the 10%, 100%. And when you made, you made that 10% of the external, the 100%, then when we get to those, we always get to 10%, no matter how much of it you have, how much the house gets bigger, the car gets nicer, the travels get farther, but still, you still operate in the 10%. And you are dropping 10%, what we call the hedonic treadmill, which is hedonic means pleasure. Then treadmill, you're looking for pleasure on a treadmill, getting nowhere. Okay, then success is in relationships, in inner wisdom, in experience, friendship, and ultimately in understanding who you are and being the best version of who you are. That's why the strengths are important, by the way, because the strengths are the best version of who you are. That's what the strengths are. They're a manifestation of what you love, you're energized and authentic.
I knew
Yes.
you were going to
Yep.
have a good answer to that, but you blew us away. That was wonderful.
I
And
having so I having so much fun with you, by the way. I hope that you can see it.
likewise.
I am energized and I'm having a great time.
Likewise. It's been so lovely. I think people just, it's so easy to compare, and not remember that we are truly individuals and your version of success isn't the same as anyone else's, and you really described that beautifully.
Yes, it's don't miss the opportunity of being you.
Mhm.
And you mentioned before social media, the entire apparatus of social media is about why not being like somebody else.
Mhm.
Okay, the entire system is about looking to somebody else to measure who you should be, and that's a dead end.
So another question that I'm curious what you think about this. It has to do with like synchronicities or like signs from the universe. I found it interesting in your story how there was, the yellow envelope that you opened and there was your test and you didn't know how it got there. Have you had other experiences like that on your journey, or do you feel like the universe kind of tries to lead you in the right direction?
I wouldn't believe in synchronicity if would not have happened so many times to me. Okay, you ask me about the concept, I would say, but I cannot go against my experience of thinking about somebody and the phone ringing,
Hmm.
okay, or calling my brother because I have this feeling that he didn't have a good day, and he says to me, "Wow, I was going to call you
Hmm.
in Argentina." He's in Argentina. Oh my God, I could write a book about coincidences and things like that that I do believe.
Hmm.
At least for me, eh, it's something that I have experienced so many times that there is something going on.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's
By the way,
undeniable.
I don't believe that there is a master plan written somewhere
Hmm.
for us. I am a free will believer.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Okay, I find that idea that there is a master plan written by some a god, or you know, I find it kind of a fundamentalist belief. I am more on each person has the capacity to build a life,
Hmm.
but within that there are things that happen to me in my life that are inexplicable, in which I was at the right moment,
Hmm.
or things that I think about happen. Yeah. There's so
Absolutely.
when they tell me a joke and you cannot think about any because there are so many in your mind. You
Hmm.
tell me cases, and there are so many in my mind that
Hmm.
I intend to think and I cannot think about one.
Energy is like a whole nother language. So,
Mhm.
it's always kind of working alongside us. And I think that, there are messages out there for us if we're listening or
Yeah.
tuned into them. So,
Mhm. I am also so curious, and I know this is a personal question, so you can skip it if you want, but because you have had so much experience within organized religion and also outside of it, and then you have this view of manifestation and spirituality, if you believe in God, how do you view God personally? Like, do you think it's an external thing, or what is your perspective?
I have, there is one God, I believe, okay, I'm monotheistic, to use a fancy word, but my God changes a lot according to the circumstances, and I don't have to apologize for that.
Hmm.
When I am in a very tough situation that I need help, I talk to God like he's a being,
Mm-hmm.
okay? I talk to God, I need you, give me a hand. But my general God, the God that is my main God, is the potentiality in the universe and every person to become. It's a verb, becoming.
Mm-hmm.
It's the power in the universe for everybody to achieve their full potential. Okay, there is a theologian Mordecai Kaplan. That's his definition. There are also process theology. It's called process theology. Heartborn, that many theologians, I don't agree 100% with what they say, but, in the Bible, God says to Moses, my real name is I should be who I should be.
Hmm.
I love the definition in
Mm-hmm.
terms of becoming, the possibility of becoming the energy of the universe that moves things forward in a positive way. Okay. That's my main view of God.
That is one of my favorite perspectives on God I've ever heard. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
so much for sharing that. That's lovely.
Put me a little bit out of institutionalized religion, by the way.
Yeah.
I think that, it put me a little bit out of the box.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I am an out of the box person, by the way. That's creativity, love of learning, and curiosity. I am always looking at the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to. You have to, I think, you know. I'm a truth seeker myself.
Another question I had, and it's kind of a different topic, but we can kind of steer back in a different direction. I was just thinking about how burnout is extremely prevalent today. And I kind of know that I have an idea of what your answer is going to be, but do you feel like working with your strengths is that going to help prevent this like burnout that people are experiencing?
1000%.
Yeah.
Mm.
Burnout is working outside of your top five strengths.
Mm.
By the way, we are all capable of the 24.
Hmm.
Okay? We are all capable of the 24. It's an issue of going somewhere using your GPS and having a direct way, or when you make the wrong turn and they give you an alternative road, where it takes you to the place you want you to go, but it's going to take longer and more effort, then the top five are going to take you more directly to where you want to go. The bottom ones, they will take you also. You are capable, but it's the alternative route on the GPS.
Mm.
Okay? Then, yes, more you use your top five, more energized, less burned out.
Mm.
100%.
I love that. That's great. That also reminds me of another concept from Abraham Hicks. She always says like, stop trying to paddle upstream. That's so much work, It's so much easier if you just allow yourself to flow downstream. And I feel like when you're using your strengths, like that sounds like what it would feel like. You're just flowing
Mhm.
downstream.
It's called flow.
Hmm.
There is in positive psychology. When you do things and you do sense of time, because and they are challenging a little bit beyond what you are capable, but not frustrating. You know, I am an MMA practitioner, mixed martial arts.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I am. I do Muay Thai. Serious. I practice. I go to the gym every day with that to do that. And And the best coaches I ever had are the ones who made me feel that I was not doing things great, but I could achieve them.
Mm,
Okay, then you are in the flow is, and that's where I feel flow, where I am like, I need to move an inch more. Is doable
Hmm.
while I enjoying things. Okay, that's different from fixing somebody. You remember from fixing
Yeah.
to nourishing, that's nourishing. When you believe that somebody is capable of going one more inch instead of saying you're doing things wrong.
mm.
This is a different language.
Yeah. Encouragement to expand. Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm. So, do people's strengths ever change over time, or do you think there's something that's innate to each individual?
My experience working many years is that your number 24 is not going to become number one.
Hmm.
Your number 15 is not going to become number two. But your top 10, I take it every year, I explore it every year. My first seven, number one may go to number three and number four to number two. Okay. Okay. Then that's what happens because we develop and we different circumstances, but it's very reliable,
Hmm.
the strength once you take them and know them. Very reliable, and 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 your core ones remain.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. For me, that was very true when I took it. It made sense to me. I was like, yeah, that totally is my top strength. It made sense completely. Hmm.
Hmm. Okay, another random, semi-random question. I'm just curious what your perspective is, or if you practice meditation, because I feel like that is a common theme in like manifestation, spirituality, kind of religion. So I'm just curious, like if you practice it and what your thoughts are on that.
I believe in meditation is scientifically proven. I recommend it, and it's great. I don't do it.
That's so
I
valid.
try. I try many times.
Mhm.
It's not for me.
Mm.
You know, Muay Thai, martial arts with intensity. That's my meditation. I lose myself
Mhm.
in time and space. Okay, I am like concentrating.
Mhm.
No, I have no negative thoughts.
Yep.
Okay, then I am not thinking. I try meditation, not for me. I mean,
Mm.
I have to, and I try many times. Then don't
Yeah.
force it. Don't
Yeah.
force it. Not everything is for everybody.
Yeah, and it's not like a one size fits all. I do think moving meditation is totally a thing though. And,
Yeah.
we both do yoga is an important part of our practice.
Right.
I feel like that is that's a moving meditation. And I think anything kind of like you said, if you're kind of letting go of your thoughts and being present, that's a meditation.
Hmm.
There is
Absolutely.
there is walking meditation that sometimes I do. I
Hmm.
am in the office and I go out and I walk around the parking lot and I look at my steps and I think only about the steps and don't let any negative thought go. That I like walking meditation.
I was thinking about that when you were talking about the culture in South America, actually, because when you were like, we don't have to plan a month in advance, we can just text and go to coffee, and we might go to 4 coffees a day. It sounds like a very present way of living, like more simplistic and more in the now. And that is sort of a meditation of life to me, the more you are present.
Everything has a cost. Clearly we are one of the most productive societies.
Yeah.
Okay, productivity is very important for us, and consuming and then then it would be completely illogical for the American mind to be spending so much time just talking and having coffee. Then in Argentina and in other countries, yes, the price they pay is that they're not as productive.
Hmm.
Okay, and the economy is not as good as our economy, and then got to find balance.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
so true. Balance in everything. So
Hmm.
important.
Yeah, definitely. I have another question that is also somewhere else. I'm curious, have you noticed or experienced, or what is your perspective on mental health affecting physical health and well-being?
No, we are one thing.
Hmm.
Okay, the dichotomy between mind and body is basically an illusion. Eh, That's why I take care of my body.
Hmm.
That's why I watch what I eat, sleeping and exercising. And days where that's why you are depressed, you feel weakness in your body. The dichotomy between body and mind, we got it. For those who want to go back to philosophy, I have a PhD in philosophy, by the way. That was my original training. Come to Descartes. You know, I think, I think, and they exist.
Yep.
Okay, that's a terrifying thought. Terrifying thought. I think because what about I love and I exist? What about I experience and I exist? What about I feel and I exist? Okay, then he had this idea of the mind being some entity different from anything else we are. Okay, and it was great for his time because it was scientific revolution. Then everything was put on the endeavor of the intellect. But I love intellect, but I think we've gotten out of it, in terms of seeing human beings as a unity,
Hmm.
and seeing humanity as part of the universe and everything interconnected. On that, I am a mystic, by the way. I am a rationalist, but I am also a mystic in which I do believe that everything is one.
Hmm.
Everything is one manifested in many forms. But we are made out of this is everybody says this. We are made out of the dust of stars.
Hmm.
Okay, it's true,
Hmm.
and the implications is that our form and manifestation is just a modality of what the universe is made out of. Okay, and if you believe in that, then it brings you a complete sense of responsibility because you are not special or different from anything else. Um, then yes, I try to get into away from the duality of mind and body. Holistic approach.
I think it's so important for more people to realize that. And I think personally, the more that I've learned about, I mean, quantum physics proves that we are literally connected to all that is. Like that's not just a woo-woo thing, that's a reality. That's a scientific reality. And the more that I recognize that and I'm conscious of that and embody that, it makes me care more about other people and myself. Like it is a feeling of unconditional love, and you don't judge people as hard or yourself because you remember, like, I'm connected to all that is. Like, it does matter how I feel. It does matter how I act towards others. We really are one. I really, really believe that.
Yep.
That's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. So glad to hear you share that perspective.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I think that was all the questions I think that we have for you today. Is there any final things you would want to share that we haven't touched on?
So again, I had a great time. I mean, I think that the variety of questions. Thank you. I think that you gave me a chance with the questions to go beyond my usual scientific script about positive psychology. And I'm very grateful to you. You gave it a lot of your personal spiritual touch, and I think that as that you're exemplars of how we can get out of people
Hmm.
to touch with themselves, and see different angles about themselves. Then thank you. I had a great time.
Thank you so much for being here. We genuinely had the best time too, and you're definitely invited back if you ever want to.
Yes, you
Thank
have
you.
so much wisdom to share that I think
Mhm.
people really need to know and it's so great to be able to speak to people who have just so much knowledge and things that more people really need to know. So,
Yeah, and it's lovely that you've had experience in so many different facets of life. You have amazing perspectives on everything. It's great. Thank you so
Thank you.
much for sharing.
Thank you.
To end this episode, we're going to pull a card for you, leave you with a message, and
we have a new deck that we're pulling from. It's super magical. The Green Witches Oracle deck fits right in with our vibe here. And I'm super excited to see. This is always a good opportunity for you guys to take that moment of reflection and just kind of see what the universe might have to share with us today. And if you guys are watching on YouTube or Spotify, you can actually see the card that we're pulling and you can see us. So we highly recommend watching us on video. Lavender. This is gorgeous. So it's like lavender. The roots are going into the earth. There's crystals. And it says tranquility, kindness, and self-care. So pretty.
okay, lavender is a popular green witchcraft herb, often associated with peace, tranquility, rest, and relaxation. Its stress relieving properties make it the perfect herb to use in various self care applications, such as in a bath or an essential oil. Take a moment to consider whether you've been kind enough to yourself lately. The lavender card is a great reminder to take stock of how you treat yourself. Remember that kindness comes in many forms. You may have been critical of yourself or your body lately. Maybe you have been driving yourself too hard without eating or sleeping properly. Take a moment for yourself to restore your equilibrium. This is a great time to re-examine your life to see what changes you could make to facilitate less stress in general. Reflection question: what area of your life needs kindness right now? I think that is just so perfect for this episode. I mean, Alfredo was reminding us to stop and take the time to ask ourselves, what are we thinking? How are we thinking about ourselves and what are we thinking about? And that's just such a good reminder. And allowing yourself to be human.
Yes, like be kinder to yourself, be
Mhm.
kinder to your loved ones, with those around you, and spread more of that into the world. And, the kinder you are to yourself, the more you take care of yourself, the more you have the capacity to do that to others.
Mhm.
And just,
The
yeah.
more you're raising the frequency.
Yes.
And with that, thank you for listening to this episode and helping us to raise the frequency. Please share this with anyone you think it might help feel better. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye. Don't forget to like and subscribe.